Today we begin a new mini-series of lectures focused on life, health and living conditions in the 1840s in what is now Bogota, Colombia. As we have discussed in previous lectures, Colombia was still a young nation during this period, after initially achieving independence in 1810, then fracturing into warring city-states during the Patria Boba. Simon Bolivar reunited the country in 1819, but before his death in 1831, the country and most of the continent of South America had turned against. In our lecture of the tragic fates of the founders of Colombia, we discussed the upheaval during these periods. But the mid-1840s, Colombia was beginning to take shape as a nation. But what was everyday life like then? Using an array of archival information from the J. Leon Helguera Colombiana collection at Vanderbilt University, we start by constructing a detailed discussion of the city and ITS environment. To better understand health, disease, and everyday life in Bogota during the mid-19th century, one must first understand the physical and environmental conditions within which urban society operated. The city was not merely the backdrop against which social life unfolded. Rather, its geography, climate, infrastructure, and patterns of settlement profoundly shaped the daily experiences of its inhabitants and influenced contemporary understandings of health and illness. In 1845, Bogota occupied a unique position within the Republic of New Granada. Situated at an elevation exceeding 2,600 meters above sea level upon the Sabana de Bogota, the city ranked among the highest administrative capitals in the world. Foreign visitors consistently remarked upon the peculiar combination of equatorial latitude and temperate climate. Although located within the tropics, Bogota's altitude produced cool temperatures throughout the year, particularly during the early morning and evening hours. Frost was not unknown in the surrounding countryside, and travelers arriving from the Magdalena Valley frequently described the capital's climate as unexpectedly cold. Contemporaries regarded climate not merely as a matter of comfort, but as a central determinant of health. Throughout the first half of the 19th century, physicians in New Granada devoted considerable attention to the relationship between altitude, atmospheric conditions, and disease. Medical discussions routinely examined humidity, rainfall, prevailing winds, temperature fluctuations, and local topography. The environment itself was widely understood as an active participant in the production or prevention of illness. The city that confronted residents in 1845 remained fundamentally colonial in its physical form. Despite more than 3 decades of political independence, Bogota had undergone relatively limited urban transformation. The basic spatial organization established during the Spanish colonial period continued to define the urban landscape. Streets radiated outward from the Plaza Mayor, the symbolic and administrative center of civic life, where governmental buildings, commercial activity, and religious institutions converged. Architecturally, Bogota presented an appearance that many foreign observers considered simultaneously modest and elegant. The majority of buildings were constructed from adobe, brick, and tile. Most residences rose only a single story above street level and were organized around interior courtyards that functioned as the center of domestic life. Behind often austere exterior facades lay patios containing gardens, water storage vessels, workspaces, kitchens, and areas devoted to family activities. The contrast between public and private space constituted one of the defining characteristics of urban life in 19th century Bogota. Streets frequently appeared disorderly, muddy, and crowded, while domestic interiors were often maintained with considerable care. This distinction reflected both practical necessity and cultural values. The household represented not merely a place of residence, but a carefully regulated social environment in which ideals of cleanliness, morality, and respectability could be enacted. Transportation infrastructure remained relatively rudimentary. Although Bogota served as the political center of the republic, neither its streets nor the roads connecting it to other regions reflected modern standards of urban planning. Movement within the city occurred principally on foot, horseback, or muleback. Commercial traffic depended heavily upon pack animals, and the circulation of goods remained constrained by the difficult geography of the Andes. Indeed, one of the most significant features of everyday life was the omnipresence of animal labor. Horses, mules, oxen, and donkeys were essential components of the urban economy. They transported food, construction materials, firewood, water, commercial merchandise, and agricultural products into the city. Their presence also shaped the environmental conditions of the streets themselves. Modern observers often underestimate the degree to which 19th century cities functioned as mixed human-animal environments. In Bogota, as in most urban centers of the period, streets served simultaneously as transportation corridors, commercial spaces, social gathering places, and drainage channels. Animal waste accumulated continuously. During periods of rainfall, mud, manure, organic refuse, and wastewater frequently mixed within the urban landscape. Yet it is important to avoid imposing modern assumptions regarding sanitation upon the past. The presence of mud, odors, and animal waste did not necessarily signify indifference to cleanliness. Rather, such conditions reflected the technological and infrastructural limitations of the period. Residents operated within a world that lacked modern sewer systems, mechanized waste removal, piped water networks, and bacteriological knowledge. Their understanding of environmental hazards was consequently framed by different scientific assumptions. One of the most pervasive of these assumptions was the theory of miasmas. According to prevailing medical opinion, decaying organic matter generated harmful atmospheric emanations capable of producing disease. Physicians, municipal officials, clergy, and educated laypersons frequently interpreted foul odors as evidence of environmental corruption and potential threats to public health. As a result, discussions of urban cleanliness focused heavily upon ventilation, drainage, the removal of stagnant water, and the elimination of sources of offensive smell. The importance of these concerns becomes evident in later public health documents issued in Bogota during the cholera scares of the late 1840s. Municipal authorities repeatedly emphasized the need to ventilate dwellings, remove waste, prevent overcrowding, and maintain clean domestic environments. Although such recommendations were formulated before the acceptance of germ theory, they nevertheless reveal a sophisticated awareness of the relationship between environmental conditions and human health. The sensory environment of Bogota was therefore central to the experience of urban life. The city possessed a distinctive soundscape dominated by church bells, street vendors, animals, commercial activity, and religious processions. Equally significant was its smellscape. Contemporary residents inhabited an atmosphere shaped by charcoal fires, wood smoke, livestock, market activity, damp adobe, tanneries, food preparation, and organic waste. To modern sensibilities, these conditions may appear primarily as evidence of inadequate sanitation. To 19th century observers, they represented a complex environmental reality whose significance was interpreted through prevailing theories of climate, atmosphere, and disease. In this respect, Bogota occupied an intermediate position between colonial and modern urban worlds. It was a city characterized by increasing political sophistication, expanding intellectual life, and growing participation in national affairs. Yet it remained dependent upon infrastructural systems that had changed relatively little since the late colonial period. The resulting tension between political modernity and material vulnerability would profoundly shape the health experiences of its inhabitants and influence the development of medicine and public health throughout the 19th century.